Matt Dalgleish joins us from episode3.net. Matt, always a lot of interesting stories up on your website and plenty on the cattle and sheep front this week.
Yeah, g'day. Thanks for having me again, Ricky.
Look, let's talk about your beefy boom. That's the headline of the article. Where is the boom occurring when it comes to beef?
Yeah, look, from February to March, we saw a big rebound in total exports, but the big two, destinations that have really contributed has been China and South Korea. If you look at the movements from February to March, South Korea had almost a 50% increase in volumes over that period, and China had a 60% increase in volume. So a real kind of uptick in demand out of those two centres in particular.
Well, when you're mentioning upticks, we have talked with other correspondents. They felt like the domestic cattle market was a bit lower than it should have been. We have seen a little bit of improvement on the Eki this last week.
Yeah, that's right. I think I've been saying the same thing for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, that I felt that this sell-off we'd seen is overdone. But we've now seen a bit of a base found in the cattle market. So Eki's up on the week; it's up about 30 cents, and the heavy steer as well has turned the corner. It looks like, and that's kind of climbing higher, which is a good sign for the rest of the cattle complex there.
That's good steering in the right direction. Before we talk sheep, Matt, I did notice across the last week, I know it might have been the case a couple of weeks ago, but I understand Italy has banned lab-grown meat as they try and preserve their farming heritage. This is a very interesting move.
It is, and look, I mean, the Italians in particular, as part of the Europeans, are well known for, high fashion and doing the right thing. So it looks like they're leading the way again with the lab-grown meat stuff.
Yeah, well, I think on another topic we've talked about insects, they're also banning insect-based flowers in their pasta. So they are really going hard against, these new forms of generating protein.
Yeah, look, I think banning it's probably a little bit too far of a stretch from my perspective. Being a market economist, we do like to allow markets to have free access. So from my perspective, I think it's more about just making sure the labelling is correct so the consumer knows exactly what they're buying, and not having these non-meat products kind of trying to get benefits off running off the tailwinds of meat products. I mean, that's the big thing I've got with them.
Yeah, let's talk about the sheep side of things. And whilst we could start talking about lamb, I know mutton is often put in the corner like baby gets put in the corner. Let's talk mutton first. Yeah,
mutton had a bit like the beef side. Mutton's had a really strong kind of start to the year, but January and February were good numbers, but March has exploded actually. And a lot of that's to do with China. So we're seeing, about 49% higher flows just to China over February to March. And of course, China takes about 40% of our mutton. So when they kick into gear, it makes a big difference. And if you look actually at the Chinese flows in particular, Ricky, we've had the strongest January on record for flows of mutton to China. We've had the strongest February, and now we've had the strongest March. So it's 3 consecutive months where the Chinese demand has really picked up since the start of 2023.
Is it too much to speculate that since about the 15th of March on the domestic market, we hit sort of a floor on the trade lamb indicator at Meat and Livestock Australia? Seems to be rallying just like beef?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, there has been, if you look at the flows of particularly sheep since the start of the year, we have seen much higher yardings and much higher slaughter. I think slaughter's up about 60% compared to this time last year. In terms of numbers coming through. So there is some strong supply, and that has kind of pressured price a little bit. But now this demand coming out of places like China, particularly for mutton, I think has put a bit of a floor in that market. If you look at the mutton indicator, I think that's rallied nearly 70 cents over the last few weeks. So it looks like we're starting to see a little bit of positives flowing through to those pricing as well, thanks to this offshore demand.
Now, Matt, a penny for your thoughts about live exports. There's some consternation, it seems, on the pro-live export side that the federal government hasn't really left enough time with its ban being rolled out to really research the science on this. Someone's going to pick up that trade anyway. Where do you see this going from a market's point of view?
We have already seen, if you look at the flows, like the Australian flows have been reducing and over the last few years, and some of that is to do with the moratorium, and some of that's to do with the fact that we've had low sheep numbers. So it's not just the fact that, that it's been, live export specific. It's been the market in general. Over those last few years, though, when Australia's been kind of reducing their footprint, so to speak, we have seen other countries, the likes of Romania and Somalia, picking up the flows. And so, the customers that we were sending product to, they've just switched to these other alternative sources. So, Australia being out of the mix is not going to change the fact that these countries want to have live export sheep. And unfortunately for the animal welfare side of things, if they take them from countries like Romania or Sudan or Somalia, they don't have the type of requirements that Australia insisted upon to make sure the animals were treated correctly all the way through the supply chain. So that's not a good outcome for the sheep, certainly. But I think from an Australian perspective, West Australia relies heavily on that trade still. And, we're seeing that there's a big discount in pricing in West Australia compared to the East presently. And I think part of that is because the live trade's on its way out.
I can almost hear farmers shaking their fist at the sky when you said that, Matt, not disagreeing with you, but saying, why? Why are we doing this if the welfare standards aren't going to improve for the sheep? But we're out of time, Matt. We're going to have to delve with that off the air. Thanks so much for joining us today on Flow.
Thanks, Ricky. Cheers.